The night my neighbor knocked on my door, I thought she was about to complain about the overgrown grass in my front yard. Instead, she told me something that changed my life forever. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping others when they need it most, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that one act of compassion can change everything. My name is Nathan, and this happened in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. 3 years earlier, my life had fallen apart. My wife, Rebecca, had passed away after a long battle with illness, leaving me alone to raise our young daughter, Grace. Losing her felt like losing the sun itself. The house became silent. Every room carried memories. Every corner reminded me of the life we once had. I tried to stay strong for Grace. During the day, I worked long shifts at a local warehouse. At night, I cooked dinner, helped with homework, washed clothes, and somehow tried to fill the role of both parents. But no matter how hard I worked, I always felt like I was failing. Grace rarely smiled anymore. I rarely slept. And our home slowly became a place filled with sadness instead of hope. Living next door was a woman named Sarah. She was a gynecologist at one of the largest hospitals in the city. She was respected, successful, and surprisingly kind. Though we had been neighbors for years, our conversations were usually brief waves from across the driveway. That changed one rainy evening. I had just returned from work when Sarah knocked on my door. Her expression seemed unusually serious. She handed me a small casserole dish and said she had made too much dinner. It seemed like a simple gesture. But as we sat at the kitchen table talking, she noticed the exhaustion on my face. She noticed the unpaid bills stacked near the refrigerator. She noticed how quiet Grace had become. Most people would have politely ignored those things. Sarah didn't. Over the next several weeks, she occasionally checked on us. Sometimes she brought food. Sometimes she helped Grace with school projects. Sometimes she simply listened. And slowly, the darkness that had settled over our home began to lift. One evening, while sitting on the porch as the sun disappeared behind the trees, Sarah told me something I never expected. During her years as a doctor, she had met thousands of women and families. She had witnessed births, celebrations, heartbreak, and unimaginable loss. But according to her, there was one thing that appeared again and again. The strongest families weren't the richest. They weren't the smartest. They weren't even the luckiest. They were the ones who never faced their struggles alone. She explained that every family reaches moments when they feel broken. The difference is whether someone is willing to reach out and whether someone else is willing to answer. Her words struck me harder than she probably realized. Since Rebecca's death, I had convinced myself that asking for help was weakness. I thought strength meant carrying every burden by myself, but maybe strength meant allowing others to help carry the weight. For the first time in years, I began opening up. I joined community events. I spoke to other parents. I accepted offers of assistance instead of rejecting them. And little by little, life improved. Grace started laughing again. She made friends. Her grades improved. The sadness that once filled our home slowly gave way to warmth. Then came the day that tested everything. One winter morning, Grace collapsed at school. The phone call sent terror through my entire body. I raced to the hospital, convinced I was about to lose the only family I had left. Doctors ran tests for hours. The waiting room felt endless. Every minute felt like a year. As fear consumed me, Sarah arrived. She had left work the moment she heard what happened. She sat beside me through the entire ordeal. She didn't make promises. She didn't offer false hope. She simply stayed. Hours later, the doctors finally returned with good news. Grace had experienced a severe but treatable medical condition. She would recover completely. The relief was overwhelming. I broke down in tears right there in the hospital corridor. And for the first time since Rebecca died, those tears weren't caused by grief. They were caused by gratitude. In that moment, I understood what Sarah had been trying to teach me all along. life isn't measured by how much pain we endure alone. It's measured by the people who stand beside us when the pain becomes too much. Months passed. Grace regained her health. The seasons changed. Our neighborhood returned to normal, but something inside me had changed permanently. One evening, as I watched Grace ride her bicycle down the street, laughing freely beneath the golden light of sunset, I realized that happiness had quietly returned to our lives, not all at once, not dramatically, but one small act of kindness at a time. A casserole dish, a conversation, a helping hand, a friend who refused to walk away. And it all began because my neighbor chose to care. If you've made it this far, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness changes lives." Now, before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this story touched you, reminded you of someone special, or inspired you to help another person, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these meaningful stories reach more people who may need hope today. As the sun disappeared beyond the Ohio horizon that evening, I looked at Grace and realized something beautiful. We often think heroes arrive wearing capes, but sometimes heroes live next door. Sometimes they're the neighbor who notices your pain. Sometimes they're the friend who stays when everyone else leaves. And sometimes they remind you that even after the darkest storms, life can still surprise you with light. My neighbor was a gynecologist, but the most important thing she ever healed wasn't a patient. It was a broken family that had almost forgotten how to hope. And because of her kindness, we found our way home again.